Hi everybody, welcome to day 7 of Monaco Bingo. Sorry for the delay, and I don't know why they scheduled the Super Bowl for when we're supposed to be doing bingo, right? But anyway, we apologize for the delay, but hi everybody. We just wanted, in case you guys were watching the Super Bowl, we wanted to let you be able to watch the halftime show at least before you had to take a little break and join us to find out what today's stitch is. Before I forget, I want to let you know that tomorrow we actually need to go on a little bit earlier. I believe it's gonna be at 1:30. So Hannah will be on tomorrow at 1:30 to pull the stitch for tomorrow. But without further ado, let's find out what the stitch is for us today. So here we go. Mix them up. Okay. Satin stitch. Okay. So the satin stitch is not difficult, but it is a little bit. Bingo is even more exciting than the Super Bowl. I know, that's what I thought too, but we didn't even realize it till today. Then Hannah said to me, "Oh my God, we scheduled it during the Super Bowl." So yeah, we did realize that a little bit late though. So as I was saying, satin stitch is not difficult, but it is a stitch that takes a little bit of patience. Okay, so let me get my stuff ready and then I'll show you the satin stitch. Okay, yeah, we're obviously not huge football fans. We actually don't even have cable TV, so we are having some trouble watching it. Let me turn this around. Where are we? Yeah, so today is the satin stitch. So when you're doing the satin stitch, so let's see. If you have the satin stitch in a, where's mine? Okay, this is my satin stitch. So this one has 2 colors in it. Let me see in our samples. I think they might actually be in the same spot in our samples. Yes. So Hannah's is here too. You can see Hannah played around with the direction of her satin stitch. Okay. And then I did it kind of small, following the grid, but going in different directions. So you see on this side, the stitches are going vertically. And, oh, actually, no, they're not going vertically. They're going diagonally. Okay, go party then, Marilyn. Enjoy. These are going this direction. And then on this half, they're going vertically. Okay. Hi, Tia. Sorry for the delay. And then over here, I've done it almost like a long and a short stitch for the satin, where they sort of start and stop at different points. So that's good for like blending and shading. Okay. So what else about the satin stitch? So you can do them either following the shapes in the color blocks, or you can use a contrast color if you'd like. But what I do want you to know is that satin stitch looks the best when you use only one strand. It will give you the smoothest effect. That is why they call it the satin stitch, because it looks shiny and smooth like a satin. However, in more modern embroidery, you may find people using multiple strands. So I think Hannah used multiple strands on this one, right? Hannah, did you do that on yours? It looks thick, so I think it might be multiple strands. The other thing is you can pad your satin stitch and put things underneath, like put some stitches underneath and make it a little bit more raised. Oh, you did one. Okay. Oh, but you overlapped a lot then. Oh yeah, you did overlap a lot. Okay. So you can outline your shape first and sort of pad it using like a stem stitch. Yep, you padded it. Yeah, Hannah said she padded hers. I did not pad mine, so it's pretty flat here, but hers is definitely thicker in feel. Okay. So you can pad it using any kind of outline stitch. So you could use the outline stitch, the stem stitch, the see, what's the other one I'm thinking of? The split stitch, a back stitch even. So what is padded? Good question, Kathleen. So padded is when you outline the shape that you want to stitch first. So let me just show you. So if you guys know the satin stitch and you need to go ahead and stitch it when you get a chance. And if not, let me show you here. So let's say we want to pad something. Okay, Hannah said she used a stem stitch, she thinks. So let's do this. Since it's, well, looks like an I, but it's like a football. Okay, so I'm going to pad it. And I think I'm going to use the blue. Okay, so I'm going to use a stem stitch, no, the split stitch to pad it. Hi Liz, we're doing satin stitch today. So let me just show you what I mean by padding it. Leaf-I Nova ball, yeah, right? I'm gonna do a back split stitch. Okay. And so to pad it, it just gives it a clean shape to stitch around or stitch over, and it also gives it a slightly raised feel. Now again, you do not have to pad it. That's completely up to you. I think what I'll do is I'm going to pad one side of this eye or leaf shape, and I'm going to leave the other half unpadded. And let's see, it is so fancy, right? And then let's see the difference, okay? Can everybody see the demo okay? Let me know if you need me to adjust anything, all right? We were having trouble figuring out when the halftime show actually was going to end because we were not watching on live TV. Oh, good. Thank you, Hannah. We were not watching on live TV. And so Hannah was streaming it on something on, I think she said the NBC app. And then I was streaming it on, I don't know, NBC Sports or something. I don't know. And it was just different. The timing was different. So I don't know. We weren't sure when to end. I'm like, I'm just doing it. I'm going to go ahead and you guys can join us whenever, or you can watch the replay. I'm glad many of you hopped on. So that was nice. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go down to one strand, and you can play around with it and you can see what works for you. Okay. One strand will give you the smoothest look. And, oh, I should use a thin, let me see. I need a thin needle. This is a thin one, yeah. You can use more strands if you'd like, but try it with different number of strands and you can decide what works best for you, okay? All right. Okay, so I padded this half of the shape and I'm going to leave this half unpadded, and let's just take a look. And I'm going to go vertically with my satin stitch. If you have a larger shape, it is a good idea to work from like the center and then out in either direction, okay? So I'm going to start here just above where that padding is in the center. The other thing you could do is make a line so you know, like start with your first straight line. Oh yes, Olympic curling. I don't understand the curling. I gotta admit, I'm not into the curling. I love the figure skating and the skiing stuff, and I just don't get the curling. Do you enjoy watching curling, Kathleen? Okay, so I made one vertical stitch in the center, and then and all of them start just above that line that I just stitched, okay? And I'm gonna go above it, but just to the left of this stitch I just made. Okay. And then you can see if you hold it down. Oh, you've done it yourself. Okay, so you get it. I'm sure it's fun if you actually know what you're watching, but I have no clue. So, Okay, so I'm going to hold it down before I reinsert my needle, and I can see if that stitch is laid right next to the last one. Okay, you can't say you totally get it, but you've tried it. All right. Okay, now I'm going to come just to the left of the one I just made again. And then I'm going to check to lay it down. So you see what I mean? But you can see where it's going to go before you reinsert. Okay, and come down again. All right, so that's 3 stitches. So I think at this point you get the idea of why I said it isn't that it's difficult, but it is a stitch that takes quite a bit of patience. Because imagine you're using this stitch to make color fill. That's generally what it's done for, in smaller shapes usually. But imagine you're using the satin stitch to fill larger areas or lots of different areas. It's gonna take a while. So, you know, it's good to do it maybe in shorter sessions so that you're not getting tired. Hi, Jess. And we're demonstrating today's stitch is the satin stitch. Okay, so you can see I'm moving that strand before I go back down. So you do them next to each other. Yes, I do them next to each other. Yes. I mean, if you do notice that you left a little space, you could go back and fill it in. It's, you know, like we said, there's no hard, fast rules to this. You make it work however you want to make it work. It usually looks best if you lay it right next to each other, but you can give yourself a few vertical guides if you'd like. But it's just hard to tell, like, the spacing of it if you space them apart and then go back and fill in, because what if the gap is not the same thickness as your thread, right? Okay, so I think it will take literally all night if I fill this entire thing. But I would go all the way from the center out to the edge, and then I would work my way back, and you could either on the back weave your way to the other side if you still had enough thread, or you could just jump over. But if it's like a long way to go, then I would weave it back underneath the threads you just made. So let's pretend that I went all the way down to this edge, okay? And then I would come back up and now work from the center to the right, okay? For those of you who just joined us, today I drew the satin stitch. So I'm demoing the satin stitch now, and I've done it so that you can get an idea of what it looks like if it's padded on half of it and if it's not. So the bottom half is not padded. I just drew the shape that I want to outline, and on the top half I've padded it with a split stitch. Yes, I think if well, you know what? It kind of depends, Kathleen. So let's say we were doing a satin stitch of some flower petals, and we wanted to make it look like it's got a little dimension, where maybe the outside of the petal was, see now here, I think I went a little too far over, because if I pull it so that the stitch is parallel, you see how I get a little gap? So if we wanted to fill in, I'm going to do that now. I'll go down in so that the stitch stays vertical, and I'm going to jump back and fill that in. I think it's just one strand width. Is it? Oh, geez. No, maybe it's 2. Okay, so let's do 2. All right, so if you wanted to make it look a little more dimensional, like maybe that the outside is sticking up towards you and the center of the petal is in the center of the flower and a little more receded, then you might want to pad just the outside of the petal. But if you wanted it to look more even throughout, then I'd say decide to either pad all around the shape or pad or don't pad. It's again up to you. But that's the only time I think I might say that you wouldn't necessarily want to pad both sides. But anyway, so this is basically the satin stitch. Now you want to also be careful not to pull the stitch too tight. Now you see if I pull too tight, do you see what happens to the fabric? it puckers there. So you want your tension to be nice and smooth. See how nice and smooth that satin stitch is? It's so shiny, right? That's what you're kind of going for, is a nice smooth stitch that fills the whole shape with color, okay? So I think that's good as far as the demo go. It looks a little bit like an eye, huh? Anyway, thank you, Hannah. So that's the satin stitch. And so let me show you on, uh-oh, I just heard my needle fall. Okay, let me get that before someone hurts themselves. Okay, so now that is an eye, yes. So let me show you on the sampler itself, on the bingo board. So here's mine. And so because you have that little bit of the grid already on here, you can use those, either do the little squares or do the tiny triangles and play around with maybe that, changing the angles if you'd like. But you don't generally want to make the satin stitch maybe bigger than maybe half an inch or so. I feel like a half an inch would be a long way for that stitch to travel. Although I have done them so that they are very long, but if it's anything that you're going to wear, wash, or something that gets a lot of, that needs to be durable. Enjoy the curling, Kathleen. Bye. If it's something that needs to get washed or something that you're afraid it's going to get snagged on anything, then keep your satin stitch height much shorter. Don't go more than like a half an inch. I think that would be kind of pushing it. All right. So let's see. I'm not going to pat it because it's going to take a lot longer if I pat it. Where's my green? Here's the green. So I'll do a little section here of green. I think I'm going to go here, and then I'll do the purple below it, okay? So I'm going to come, actually I'll come up in the center. Uh-oh, I just unthreaded. Let's go back in. Hi, Skooks Playground. We are doing satin stitch today. If you know how to do that, or if you are busy watching Super Bowl and you need to go back to the game, then feel free. But today's stitch is the satin stitch. Okay. So I'm going to work in this direction, and this is going to be my first vertical stitch. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the left. So I'll work from center to the left. We are doing satin stitch today. Center to the left. And before I reinsert the needle, I'm going to just check that I like the direction of it and that it's laying parallel to the previous stitch. Makes it look like a leaf with a vein. No, I think that might be like fishbone stitch or even a chevron stitch. It's similar in terms of you laying them down, but this doesn't do that sort of crisscross thing. Yeah, I think it might be like a fishbone that you're thinking of, Liz. It's probably like a relative of the satin stitch, maybe. Okay, so... Okay, so I'm just working from the center out to the left. Yeah, cousins, just like you and Liz. Yes, you stitch left of center, then right of center, exactly. I hope everyone had a nice weekend and had a chance to catch up with their stitching on Saturday during our break day. But you can see, yeah, this is a stitch that is not something quick. And this is kind of like what I guess the machine embroidery looks most like, satin stitch. Okay, I'm actually gonna redo that last one. So I'm gonna take that out. I need to go a little closer to the purple edge, I think. So let me do that again. Putting that one in my satin stitch square. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna come down just a little more. And then one more. Okay. All right, so that's like half of it. And then on the back, like I said, you can weave back under. So this is a good stitch for, let's say you're stitching something that is transparent. If you're stitching on something like gauze or something, or chiffon or something like that, something that's see-through, then this is a good stitch because it looks the same on the front and the back, and it also hides most of your, well, you don't necessarily have to have knots, but it would hide all of that because you can kind of tuck it underneath. Oh, you catch up 3 square. Oh, good. Yeah, that, I think it's good for us to give everybody Saturday off. Well, for us too, I think, but it lets everybody who has been busy during the week have a chance to catch up. And I mean, did we get any winners? I haven't heard anybody yell bingo, but I guess maybe because the satin stitch takes so long. Yeah, so let me see. I want to try to finish this square, but it literally feels like it's taking forever. Okay. And so it uses a lot of thread. Well, kind of a lot of thread, I guess. It's only using 1 strand at a time, though. But again, if you want to play around and see and experiment on your own, and if maybe you like it looking a little bit chunkier, then, you know, you don't have to use 1 strand. I have found it looks smoothest with 1, but you gotta choose what works best for you and what look you're going for. And again, careful your tension. Try not to pull too tight. Okay. We got some snow today in Connecticut. Did you guys get snow too? Let's see. So there is the green. And then I'm going to go under and just tie this off. And then if you wanted to, you could weave it underneath so that you hide the knot. And then I'm going to quickly show you with the purple up against it. So in this little section, I'm going to go, I think I'm going to go in this direction. And I'm going to this time go from center to the right because I just want to butt it up against the... So here it's not straight, so I'm actually going just below it because there's a little bit more of a curve there. Okay. Okay, so I'm just coming a little bit at an angle to accommodate for that curve. All right. So that's how they join. And you don't have to go in a different direction. I just chose to do that, but you could still keep it in the same, so that the stitches are stitched in the same direction as the original one, as the green one. And now I'm going to come to the left of it. I think I'm near the knot. There we go. Okay, and then I hold it down to see where the stitch is going to lie, and then go ahead and reinsert the needle. Yeah, so if you have a spot that is really large, I would suggest you, like if it was in a spot that's all just one color, then I would say break it down into the smaller shapes. Use the grid to your advantage. do not necessarily try to make a super long stitch covering the entire square, because it will most likely snag. And if there's anything going on with your tension, it's probably not going to be very smooth looking. So go ahead and use little squares or triangles as your guides. And I'm just going to finish that little square section. Does anybody have any questions about the satin stitch? So it's just like a bunch of parallel adjacent straight stitches done with generally one strand of thread. Okay. I think that's gonna do it for me for this one. And if I have time, I'll go back in and make more, but there's my little sample of satin stitch. So as we said, it doesn't matter if you only have a small section stitched in your box. As long as it's stitched, it does count for your bingo. So yes, it's so fun to see everyone's interpretation. We've seen some really creative solutions to stitching the boxes from everyone. We love when you share with us, and it's just been so fun. So there is the satin stitch. So day 7 again is satin stitch, and day 8 tomorrow I hand it back off to Hannah, and she's going to be coming to you live at about 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. Okay? I think that is it. Hannah, did I forget anything? Oh, this was a size 3 needle, so just use a needle that accommodates your thread. It may be easier to use a smaller needle since you're only using one strand, so then the holes will be not quite as big, because as the needle comes up and it pushes the fibers apart, it might be harder for you then to come back up and lay the stitch right next to it. So, you know, I would say maybe use a smaller, narrower needle, excuse me. Okay, so that's it. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the game if you're watching.